Welcome back to another Spot On chat. I'm Rebecca Monet with Zorakle Profiles. Zorakle provides profiling tools to franchisors and to franchise consultants that helps facilitate a right fit between a prospective franchisee and a franchise concept. So my guest today is Bryan Lewis. Bryan is the founder and owner of Press Waffle Company, a unique food concept based out of Dallas that specializes in authentic Belgian waffles, savory waffle creations, and locally roasted coffee. Bryan and his brother Caleb Lewis had all investors at Shark Tank interested in their vision for Press Waffle Company. They ultimately aligned with Barbara Corcoran. Also, Bryan and his wife are actively involved in a organization called Young Life. It's a Christian outreach ministry that Bryan and his wife are involved in. So welcome, Bryan. I'm so glad to have you today.
It is good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I love these off the wall conversations where we can really get into the hearts and minds of one another.
Yeah,
So,
no, I'm looking forward to it. Don't scare me off with any of your questions. All right.
I won't, I promise. I'll be easy on you. So yeah, the Press Waffle Company is a very fascinating concept. But do you mind taking kind of a step back for us and telling us the origin of this idea that you had and then kind of where it ended up going?
Yeah, absolutely. How we got started is still so much of, I guess, who we are as a brand and how we operate and things like that. But at the end of the day, it's a really simple story. My wife and I guess in 2013, summer of 2013, spent a summer abroad in Europe, just traveling. We actually ended up working at a wine vineyard for like a month and a half. She was teaching pottery classes and babysitting, and I was like mowing the lawn, and I was the handyman, and so totally random. But
Oh my
before.
gosh.
Yeah, before and after that, we did as much traveling as we could because we were like, hey, we're here, let's do this. But while we were over there, I encountered the Liège waffle for the first time. And I remember sitting down at this cafe and I just ordered a waffle. I mean, I had no allegiance to waffles at all at this time, but it sounded good. I was like, hey, can I have a waffle? And they brought this thing out and I took one bite of it and I was like, holy moly, like, what is this? And they were like, it's a waffle. And I was like, that is not a waffle. That is not like that is not like any waffle I've ever had. And so I got him to explain, what the Liège style was and the fact that it was dough based and had the pearl sugar and all that stuff. And what we found is that everywhere we went, whether it was England or Scotland or Belgium or Amsterdam or France or wherever, we could find these everywhere. They were in every cafe, coffee shop. They sold them in the grocery store, prepackaged. And so literally all summer long, we ate waffles and Nutella. I gained way too much weight doing so. And I'm not allowed to say my wife did too, but
no, that's a no-no.
But, and so we came back and we were getting married the following spring. And we thought it would be so cool to have a waffle bar at our wedding to show, to share these unique waffles. And so, working with our caterer and looking around town, we realized, okay, well, it's not the same here. Nobody's doing this in Dallas, Texas. Nobody's making this style of waffle. And so, I looked up some online recipes and gave them to our caterer and said, hey, can you try and make this? And they did it. We did a testing and I was like, that's not it. That's not right. Whatever. So we ended up buying some like prepackaged ones off the internet and like warming them up. And, it was still a good waffle bar and it was fun. But that really set me on this question. I was like, I got to learn how to make these, And so just as a personal hobby, no real food experience. I mean, I've always loved to cook, but just tinkering around in my kitchen, I started playing with recipes and that turned into an obsession. And so for 8 months, I think I made waffles every day. My wife was so sick of waffles. I was like, we're having waffles for dinner, waffles for breakfast, And I was like, babe, taste these two. Tell me which one you like more. She was like, they taste the exact same. I was like, no, 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 that one's got 5 more grams of yeast in it. You know, I mean, it was crazy. And so eventually, you know, I made a batch and I bit into it and I said, that's it, you know, that's the one. And by this time, my brother had come back from college and was kind of doing this with me. And he had also had these waffles when he was traveling abroad. And so he knew kind of what I was looking for. And so we really started, you know, working on it together. And, you know, I bit in, found the recipe, started making them for friends and family. And it just kind of snowballed from there.
Wow,
Yeah.
I love this story. I don't know if you know, but I was born and raised in Switzerland.
Mhm.
And there's definitely something about the food in Europe, whether it's the good old Bavarian pretzels or
Mhm.
the Wiener Schnitzel, or in this case, the waffles. But basically, you invented this recipe then by just trial and error, trial and error, trial and error, and fine tuning it.
Well, yeah, and I certainly didn't invent it. I mean, it started with I found, you know, recipes online, how to make Liège waffles, and I would make it exactly as they said, and then I'd play with it, you
And you
know.
play with it.
So at the end of the day, you know, our base recipe is a combination of, you know, a dozen different ones, and I took the honey from this one and the yeast from this one and the type of flour from this one and all that stuff, and that's what I was playing with for so long.
So this is a story of the better widget, in this case, the better waffle,
I guess
by
so, yeah.
by tweaking. You didn't invent the
No,
waffle.
certainly not. Yeah. Yeah, I certainly can't claim to have invented the Liège style waffle. And you know what's funny too, and we get this a lot, especially from, you know, people that are from Belgium or something. They'll say, you know, oh, this is so good, but it's different, you know. And I'm like, well, of course it's different. You know, if you go to
Yeah.
you know, pizza is pizza, but every pizza tastes different. Well, it's the same thing with Liège waffles. There is no one right way to make it. It's the
Mhm.
way that is that's yours. And so we definitely have our own.
Fabulous. So you mentioned, Brian, that your brother Caleb came into the business and started to explore this idea with you. So how is it working with your family?
It's good. We are a family-owned company. You know, back in the day when I was, you know, waffle obsessed, everybody thought it was just kind of a weird hobby that
A
I had,
whim, yeah.
and all of a sudden I was like pulling up like business plans and like menus, and and my whole family was like, what are you like, what are you up to? And you know, like I said, Caleb had just come home from college. He studied business accounting, and he knew right away that like that's not what he wanted to do. And so he was actually living with me at the time, and he was caddying at a golf club because
Hmm.
he's obsessed with golf, loves golf. He was like, I'm going to do what I like until I figure out what it is exactly that I want to do. And so by the time my wheels started turning and he had been in the testing with me, I said to him, I said, hey man, I'm gonna start a food truck and you're going to do it with me. And he said, no,
Yes.
I'm not. No, he said he was not on board at first. He was like, "That's dumb. I'm not doing that." He was like, "I may not be. I may not want to be in corporate America, but I don't want to do that."
No, I don't want to do a
And I
food
was like,
truck.
and so you know, I kept bothering him about it, and finally got him on board. And that's when we really put our heads together to come up with, you know, a plan and a business. And once we had figured that out, is when we kind of went to the rest of our family, because we were both, you know, young 20 somethings, did not have the resources to do this. And we said, hey, you know, mom, dad, brother, step parents, parents-in-law, you know, not my step parents, you know, just sat everybody down and said, hey, like, I've got this dream, I've got this vision, here's the plan, like, are you guys on board? And I am so blessed and so fortunate to have a family that looked at me and said, absolutely, we're
Wow.
in, you know. And it wasn't necessarily that easy, but the point is something that I had no experience in, something that I had that there was no reason for them to say, oh yeah, that's gonna work. I think because it was me and because it was Caleb, they said, we support you, you know? And so,
Wow.
Caleb and I, you know, put what we had up, and then, you know, my brother, my parents, my wife's parents, all pitched in, and we bought our 25-year-old food truck and outfitted it and hit the road. So working with I mean, I, I, working with family, people will always say, don't do it.
Yeah.
I can certainly see aspects of that. My not so silent partners in my other brother and my father and things. Times it's like, okay, maybe this is not so great. But at the end of the day, from when we started up, couldn't have done it without them. When we wanted to expand, couldn't have done it without them. When things have gone wrong, couldn't have done it without them. You know,
Wow.
to have them as, you know, our backbone and our support and our sounding board is just, I can't imagine having done it,
Mm-mm.
you know, without them, and especially my brother. I mean, especially Caleb. God,
Yeah.
nobody would put up with that we give each other, you know, in the food truck and things like that. Like when it's an employee or something, you just can't lean on people the way that we can
That you
with each
can
other.
when you're brothers. You can
Yeah,
say
exactly.
things, poke at each other, because
Yeah,
that's what brothers do. Well, you
yeah,
are indeed a blessed man
I am.
to be with the complete backing of both sides of your family, your wife's
Hmm.
side and your side, and then Caleb right there. And I've seen the two of you interact, and it's really fun to observe. So I'm going to wrap up this part of Spot on Chat, but I want to come back and dig a little more deeply into this family dynamic with your um, permission, of course.
Yeah,
All
yeah, of
right.
course.
All right. We'll see you in the next Spot on
All right.
Chat.